Alright, this is TCP, and TCP basically is a packet that goes between computers, can be over your network or over the internet. And so, real quick here, I have a client and a server program. So on my laptop here, I have my server, and over here on my desktop, this is TeamViewer, which allows me to see my desktop. I have my client side. So, just to show you how this works. Hit play. I'll move this guy down over here. I'll bring up my client side. Now I know for a fact 192.168.0.106 is my laptop. So I can hit connect there. I come over and hit connect there. See both buttons go blue, but when they're both connected, they go gray. That's because the commands that tell the two to listen for the other is a blocking type command. So anyways, I have my connection now. Now it's easy. And go, yo, exclamation point, and hit send. And over here pops up, yo. I can say, what's up, and send that, and that pops up over here. Well, this is pretty cool. Oh, wait. VB, yeah, send. And there it is over there. So there we are. Real simple and easy. It sends a pack of bytes around, and that's pretty much it. So let me show you how I do this now. I've stuck both the server-side code and the client-side code on here so I can go through it for you. So the first thing I want to do is do our imports of system.net and system.net.sockets, and because we're going to use a couple things here. On the server side, we use a socket and a TCP listener. On the client side, we use something called a TCP client and a network stream. Now, the TCP client just makes it real nice and easy, whereas the socket and the listener are a little bit more odd. Anyhow, button 1, which is my send button. So let's go for button 2 instead. Button 2, the first thing button 2 is going to do is set up the TCP listener as a new TCP listener with an IP address of any using port 1000. Now, this basically means if on any of this is looking for a local network adapter IP address, so like a wireless or a wired connection, you could put their IP address in here. But if any of them see something come along, that's what we want to see. So we just use IP address any, and then we want to start our listener. So then the TCP server or the socket is basically once the TCP listener has someone say, "I want to be your client," then it'll accept that socket and throw it into the server. Now this is where it pauses to wait for a client to say, hey, I want to be a client for you. So it'll pause at this command, and once it has one, it'll accept it and make the TCP server the socket to that guy. Now TCP server, by default, if you tell it to receive, it'll hold the program until it receives something. So we want to tell it not to do that. And then we want to start our timer. So the timer goes as we want to receive something. First thing we want to do is throw up a try here, a try kind of setup, the try, catch, and end try. And the reason why is because we will get a fault, an error if you will, because we're non-blocking. We're going to look through this once, and since it's non-blocking, it'll say, throw an error, well you're not making me blocking to wait for anything, and there's nothing there. Well, that's fine. We don't want to wait. We want to see if there's anything there. If not, it'll throw a fault, and then we'll just jump out of this try statement. If there is something there, then it will actually throw it up into text box 3. So first thing we want to do is define a byte array with the size of TCP server receive buffer size. Then we want to TCP server.receive and throw it into the receive bytes. And then we want to take those received bytes, put them into a string using this encoding function called getString, and put that into text box 3, which is our received text box. I guess something to note for both these examples. Text box 1 would be the IP box, text box 2 is the send box, and text box 3 is the receive box. And since the server side doesn't have one, I just kept this as 2 and kept this as 3. And don't have a text box 1 on here. So now we want to send something. Real easy button 1 click, which is our send button. we want to define the bytes as an array, and we want to kind of do the backwards of, instead of ASCII get string, we want to do ASCII get bytes. And so we're taking the string from text box 2 and converting those into bytes, and then using TCP server.send, send bytes. Real simple. Okay, so now the client side. The client side is kind of the same thing except different. It's all the same except for the differences. So we want to import system.net, and for some reason I couldn't get .sockets to import, so whatever. I just put .sockets in front of the sockets stuff. So we want to first define, this is odd looking at it without the blue, isn't it? Well, I'll just do this. So ignore the errors for the time being. But so yeah, TCP client as a TCP client, and TCP client stream as a network stream. So now button 1, if I go over here to my desktop, button 2 again is the connect. So let's start there. On button 2, we want to set up TCP clients as a new TCP client at the server address that we have here for port 1000. And it'll actually pause here until the other guy accepts it. So that's why when both buttons are clicked, they'll both turn blue until the connection is successful, and then we'll continue on. And we want to enable our timer, which is the receive timer. And then we want to say the client stream, which is our network stream up here, is from TCP clients, the TCP client. I put a Z after everything. So what the TCP client stream will allow us to do is know if there's data available. So it makes it nice and easy. It also takes care of some other things. It's nice. So anyhow, if we want to send bytes, it's a lot like our other one. Dim send bytes as bytes and array bytes. And from the ASCII, we're going to get bytes from textbox2.text, and then going to use TCP clients. You could also probably use TCP client stream here. TCP client stream.send. Oh, okay, there, right. You can use write instead of client.send. So there's two methods you can do it. But anyways, we're sending those send bytes. Real simple. Alright, so now for the receive portion, we don't need to do blocking or non-blocking on this kind of thing, because this guy actually has, if the TCP client streams has data available equals true. If not, we'll just skip over this. Then we're going to again define a array of bytes, receive bytes, for the TCP client receive buffer size. You can see a lot of similarities between socket and TCP client here. And then for the TCP client, we're going to read into receive bytes with an offset of 0 for a length of the receive buffer size. And then we're going to use the ASCII command here on receive bytes to dump into text box 3, which is our receive text box. So there we are. I hope that all made sense. This whole TCP client, network stream, socket, and TCP listener is a little odd. I do also have a video on how to do UDP, which is the simpler, younger brother, I guess, of TCP, except I don't think UDP has a lot of capacity to it, but is a lot simpler to set up. So check that one out if you're curious on, network kind of stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, crap. Crap. I'll ignore that for now. But anyways, I just wanted to make, that's right, because this. Come on. Okay, comment all that crap out. Alright, let's try reopening that. There we go. Thank you for not dying. Anyways, I just want to point out the timers are both on the client and server side enabled set to false, because we want to only enable those after we've made our connection. If we haven't made our connection yet and they're trying to run and receive crap, they're going to fault every time. And the interval on both is 100 milliseconds, and so it's pretty much instantaneous. I send it, and then the timer and the other guy sees it after 100 milliseconds and throws it up there. It's almost instantaneous. So there we are. That's TCP sending in a nutshell. If you wanted to, say, do this over the internet, what you could do is go to your internet router and tell it to port forward port 1000 on your router to your server. So your client then could say, you would use the IP address, let's see, which would be this guy down here. You would say this IP address is that global IP address of the other guy, and then, man, I hope I'm explaining this right. Let's throw some more text down here. So if your server IP address locally is, let's say, 192.168.0.106, as in the case of me, this is my local IP address behind my network. Say my server IP globally is, let's just throw some numbers out there, 123.456.789.012. Okay, that's my global IP address. You can go to I think it's www.whatismyip.com to get your global IP address. And so then on your server router, you could then say, and it's different for every router, you could say port forward port 1000 to 192.168.0.106. And therefore, every receiving packet that your router gets, and your router having this address, it'll say, oh, this is port 1000. I'll send this on over to this computer using this IP address, which will be your server. And therefore, you can have some internet communication. I haven't tested this guy out myself, but I'm pretty confident that's the method you would use to do so. So anyways, have fun with that.